What if the quiet act of talking to a plant is not a sign of eccentricity, but a profound psychological gesture? What if it reveals something essential about how we cope with loneliness, seek meaning, and quietly battle the noise of modern life? This is not a video about gardening. This is about the inner world of people who find companionship in silence, and what their behavior teaches all of us about our own need for connection, reflection, and a place to put our overflowing thoughts. You know that feeling, the mental static, the endless to-do list in your head, the pressure to always be performing, achieving, communicating. Sometimes it feels like there's no room left for your own thoughts, no space to just be, without judgment, without demand. And in those moments, the idea of whispering to a growing thing might not seem so strange. It might feel like a relief if you've ever felt overwhelmed by the human world, or unsure of where to direct your inner dialogue. Then understanding this simple act can be a key to understanding yourself. It's a window into how we manage existential anxiety, find grounding, and create meaning in small, quiet ways. And if you skip this, you might miss a chance to see your own quiet rituals in a new, compassionate light. So let's talk about the psychology of people who talk to plants. On the surface, it seems simple. They are just caring for a living thing. But look closer. There is no expectation of a reply. There is no criticism, no interruption, no agenda. The plant simply listens. It exists, and in that one-sided conversation, something quiet and powerful happens. The person is not really talking to the plant. They are talking to themselves. They are externalizing their inner monologue in the safest way possible. It is a form of thinking out loud, where the presence of another life form, however silent, makes the process feel less lonely, more real. Think about it. When your mind is a tangled knot of anxieties, speaking them into the air can untangle them. The plant becomes a witness, a non-judgmental witness. In psychology, this is related to the concept of projection. We project our need for connection onto the plant. We imbue it with a presence that accepts us as we are. This isn't about believing the plant understands words. It's about believing, on some deep level, that the act of sharing matters. That by vocalizing our care, our worries, or even just the mundane details of our day, we are affirming our own existence. We are saying, I am here, and this is my experience. And this is where things get interesting, because this one-sided dialogue is actually a two-way street with the self. And here's where it gets interesting. This practice is a subtle rebellion. In a world that values fast answers, loud opinions, and constant social exchange, choosing a silent listener is a quiet protest. It is a choice to engage in a conversation that has no drama, no conflict, no need to manage impressions. It is communication stripped down to its most essential form, one voice offering something with no demand for anything in return. For the person feeling mentally overloaded, this is a sanctuary. It is a pocket of time where the inner critic can soften, because the only listener is something that cannot criticize. But that's not the whole story. There's a deeper layer that transforms this act from escape into something truly grounding. But there's a deeper layer. Talking to a plant is also an act of mindfulness. It forces you to slow down. You notice the texture of a leaf, the subtle growth, the way the light falls. You become present. Your monologue, which might have started with your anxieties, gradually syncs with the slow rhythm of growth. You begin to talk about the plant itself. You need a little more water. Look at that new shoot. This shifts your focus from the chaotic internal world to a simple, external reality. It grounds you, literally, in the soil, in the process of life that is unconcerned with your existential fears. It offers a perspective that is larger than your own worries. And this shift is where the magic happens. It's a turning point from being lost in thought to being engaged in care. Now, let's pause and reflect. Have you ever talked to a pet, to a photograph, or even just muttered to yourself in the car? That's the same impulse. The need to hear your own thoughts outside your head. To feel that you are not alone in your own mind. The plant is just a particularly peaceful focal point. It represents life that is resilient, quiet, and perpetually oriented toward light. In talking to it, we are, in a way, reminding ourselves to do the same. To find our own light. To put down roots in our own values, even when the world feels unstable. This connection hints at a key insight about identity and where we find our sense of self. This leads us to a key insight. The psychology of talking to plants is ultimately about the search for a reflective surface for the self. When we lack calm, attentive listeners in our human relationships, or when we are too tired to seek them, we find or create them elsewhere, the plant becomes a mirror that doesn't reflect back our flaws, but simply reflects back the fact that we are here, caring, attending, being. In that mirror, we might see our own capacity for nurture, our own desire for growth, and our own quiet strength. It is a moment of clarity where we recognize that our inner dialogue doesn't have to be a battle. It can be a gentle conversation held by something stable. So, what does this mean for you? You don't need to buy a fern to understand this. Ask yourself, where do your unspoken thoughts go? What do you do with the parts of your experience that feel too minor, too messy, or too vulnerable to share? Maybe you journal. Maybe you go for a long walk. The core need is the same: to externalize, to process, to feel connected to something beyond the self without the risk of rejection. Recognizing this need is the first step toward meeting it. With kindness, perhaps it means creating more moments of silent companionship in your life. Perhaps it simply means giving yourself permission to have an inner dialogue without judgment, to be your own silent, attentive listener. And coming up, we'll tie this all together into a final perspective that might just change how you view your own need for quiet. In the end, the person talking to a plant is engaging in a very ancient, very human practice. They are animating the world with their own consciousness, not out of delusion, but out of a need for dialogue with life itself. It is a poetic, psychological tool for maintaining sanity. It is a way to remember that we are part of a living, breathing world, and that sometimes the most meaningful conversations are the ones where we do all the talking, and the listening is done by something that simply grows. This practice is a resolution to the search for meaning. In the everyday, it grounds us in the present, in care, in a slow and steady rhythm that counters the frenzy of modern life. This is the takeaway. Talking to plants is less about the plants and more about creating a space for the self to breathe. It is a gentle, ongoing conversation with your own existence, mediated by another living thing. It is a rebellion against noise, a practice in mindfulness, and a humble acknowledgement that we all need something to hold our whispers. In understanding this, you might find a new appreciation for your own quiet rituals. You might see them not as quirks, but as necessary acts of psychological self-care. You might give yourself the grace to seek out silence, to speak your thoughts to the open air, and to find grounding in the simple, steadfast presence of growing things. If this reflection resonated with you, consider what your own version of this practice might be. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What silent companion do you find solace in? And if you're looking for more ways to navigate the overwhelm and find deeper meaning, consider subscribing for more explorations like this. Thank you for listening.